we'll talk. We're on now. We'll talk about the certificates, and we'll talk about just kind of like whatever comes up naturally through
All
the
right.
course of the conversation. I started wanting to recording like as soon as people get on because like I would talk to people and like so much would happen in the pre-conversation. I'd be like, oh damn, we should have talked about that, or whatever. But
Okay.
you're doing a lot of traveling right now, aren't you? Like
Yeah.
a lot of you just did a pretty big event um, in where was it?
Poland.
Oh, in
Poland.
Poland. Okay, all right.
Mhm.
What are you doing there?
I'm going to be teaching some of the Jeet Kune Do, five ways of attack, the punching, the kicking, Bruce
Okay,
Lee's way.
right on,
We have a
right
nice,
on.
nice bunch of guys there over there. So they actually compete in a lot of MMA uh, tournaments. So that'll help them a lot.
Good, good. How do they do? How do they do in their MMA with the
They, they,
JKD?
they're doing well. They're doing well. They just want to, have an advantage as far as, everybody trains the same way, boxing, Thai boxing, and some Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So at least uh, their stand-up game may be a little more different than your regular boxing.
Right, right.
When they
Yeah,
put the Jeet Kune Do techniques in, and also the Jeet Kune Do theory of the five ways of attack also helps a lot.
yeah. I found that it helps a lot too. A lot of people, I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of people that subscribe to my channel will obviously know. I've been going to, well, I've stopped going probably like 6 months ago, but I was going to an MMA school for about 2 years in a row.
Hmm.
And I would get in with their fighters and stuff, and it was good. I mean, they liked what I did. It was a little bit different. It was just different enough to kind of throw them off, kind of oh, we're not really familiar with this. It's a little bit different.
Exactly. The element of
And
surprise, we call that.
yeah,
So
yeah, and
you're not accustomed to certain things, and it gets in.
yeah, it
Mm.
does. One of the things that I noticed that worked really well is the straight lead. Because it kind of comes under the side of vision, and it
The
comes
field of vision, yes. Yes.
yeah, the field of vision, and
Hmm.
it hits them, um and so I was able to stop a lot of their attacks as they were
Hmm.
coming in, with the stop hit, and then
Hmm.
having it with the stop hit with the straight lead, being able to stop a lot of the stuff with a lot of that lead hand stuff really served me well. I'm sure it's going to serve your students there
Hmm.
well.
Yes.
What have you been working on lately? What about self development as far as you're concerned? Like what kind of things are you doing right now for you?
Well, I'm still teaching. My school in September will be 24 years opens, in the same
Wow.
location. So I'm still doing that. And I mean, even when you teach, you relearn, so it's always, it gets reaffirmed all the time, every time you're teaching it. So
Right.
that's a good thing, so doing that. Uh, Also, I have a lot of projects that I'm involved in. One of them is doing, Bruce Lee's life in chronological order, and
Yeah.
and then also writing a Jeet Kune Do book myself.
Oh,
So,
cool.
so
Awesome.
that'll be
What
interesting.
are you doing a particular spin on it? I mean, are you just going to like cover the basics or all of it, or what's going on with that?
Uh,
What's your
and
what's your vision for your JKD book?
I think I may do it, from A to Z, the whole, just to leave it as a legacy,
Right.
something that my students can pick up and you know continue remembering, more like a reference book, if anything.
Gotcha.
You know.
So let me
So,
let me ask you this question. Out of the five ways of attack, and this is something I like to ask JKD people, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite, or do you not have a favorite, or do you like them all, or you have a favorite way of attack, or that you use personally?
well, a simple attack is just that. You see that a lot, even in boxing and combinations. You see also boxing and
Yeah,
MMA, but very few people get involved with PIA. So that
yeah,
seems to be a step up from everybody, the PIA,
right,
and it gets
right,
unexpected. So I like that a lot. I
yeah,
think that it's art. Just the PIA is an art in itself. Progressive indirect attacks. For people who
yes,
don't know what PIA means, you know.
right, right.
Mhm.
Got to clear that up for the
Yeah,
audience, for some
progressive
people in
indirect
the
attack. Yeah.
audience at least.
So
But they're
I like that the most because it's a higher level than all
yeah,
the other two. Hmm.
right, right. So okay, so before we jump into Bruce Lee certification, Let me ask you this question too. It's very interesting. I want to know kind of like the evolution of his certification and kind of where he started and then where he left it. But I want to know how do you certify people? What what levels of certification do you have? And is it the same as Bruce Lee's, or did you like just model that, or did you have any developments yourself, or?
Well, in my school, I have a beginner's class, intermediate class, and an advanced class.
Okay.
So the beginners will be our rank 1, intermediate rank 2, and the advanced rank 3. And then
Gotcha.
the people that stay with me in rank 3 in the advanced class, depending on their experience, will be a 4, 5, and 6.
Oh,
I don't give out instructorship as a rank because I don't feel to be an instructor as a rank. That's a whole
yeah.
different ball game, I mean,
Right.
obviously
Right.
you have to do the whole lot itself from rank 1 to rank 6. And then if you're interested in becoming an instructor, now you have to learn how to teach, how to teach a class, how to run a class, how to run school, and so forth. So
Right.
I never use instructor as a rank. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like to, personally, I don't like to use it.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. I kind of have the same. I don't have 4, 5, and 6. I don't know exactly what that would be, but I mean, I basically have like beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then I have practitioner, which is basically I don't know exactly how to exactly rank it, but it's like beginner to me is like you're just learning the tools
Mhm.
and like some simple strategy. And then the intermediate would be like more about strategy. You've already learned the tools, more about applying the tools, and the advanced would be more like, okay, you've got this down. Let's do advanced strategy. And then kind of the practitioner would be, you know what you're doing now. You know what you're doing. Um, so like I don't really like I have a teacher certification as well, but nobody has to have that in order to be a practitioner or anything.
Mhm.
That just means that they want to teach, but like it takes like extra special care. Like I have to know that they actually know the curriculum and not just can because
Correct.
there's a big difference between somebody knowing the curriculum and being able to perform the curriculum.
Not everyone
You know,
that can do it can teach it.
yeah, right. And I want somebody to say, "Hey, I'm a practitioner in JKD. I've got the full, and they might not be the best teacher in the world, and that's fine. They shouldn't be held back at all. It should be
Mhm.
like a separate rank.
Mhm.
So, tell me a little bit about like for you, like, okay, what's beginner, advanced, or beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then 4, 5, and 6. Like, if you wouldn't mind telling me how you divide that up, I'd be very interested in knowing.
Well, the beginner basically learns some of the basics, the stance, the punches, the kicks, some of the parries. Uh, they just go through those fundamentals, and then when they're ready, then they go to rank 2, which is basically a lot of more with mobility, footwork, evasiveness, and they learn the 5 ways of attack and things like that. It's a little more advanced for that purpose. Uh, if they make it past rank 2 and go to rank 3, they get tested by me, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And when they make it to rank 3, that's, all out everything, I mean, in rank 2, they're already sparring, but by
Hmm.
3, I mean, we're going into street fighting and taking it to a different level,
Good. Yeah.
So
What's 4, 5, and 6? What's that about?
that's all about basically how long they've been there, experience.
Okay.
If I have somebody in my advanced class for 5 years, then I'm not gonna keep them as a rank 3. I'll like I'll give them rank 4, rank 5, whatever.
I got
Depending.
you.
I mean, I have students that have been with me almost since my school opened. So,
Right,
and the
right,
school's going on 24 years. So, you know,
right.
but I'm pretty blessed with the students that I have who really don't care about rank. So
Hmm.
they never ask me about when you're gonna rank me, when you're gonna test me, or anything like that. They just training and they enjoy every bit of it. And I'm the one that
Right,
makes that decision, And when
right,
they're
right.
ready, and they're not, they're not. I'm just easy as that,
Yeah, I
So.
have a love-hate relationship with ranking.
Hmm.
There are some aspects of it I really like and enjoy and like the goal of it, but in the end, it's like your skill set is your rank. I mean, really,
Yeah,
if
sure.
if I gave somebody a certificate, it said advanced on it, and they got their ass kicked, that wouldn't mean anything.
Hmm.
The certificate doesn't mean anything. But it's like one of those things that it's kind of like I'm kind of a goal-oriented person.
Well,
So
for
like
my
I was
school,
like, what's
it
the next
yeah,
one?
for my school, it's about which class you're going to attend.
Yeah, right,
The,
right.
the funny thing is that I have a lot of students in the advanced class that'll come back to the beginners class to continue training there too. So
Right,
they go.
right.
One of the things about going to a higher level class is you can go back to the basic class again. And continue there.
Yeah.
So they make
Well,
the
the
rounds.
basics are so important. I'm actually going to do a martial vlog on this. I
Hmm.
have a separate on YouTube. I do the Empty Cup podcast, but then I do a separate thing called the martial vlog, which is a take on martial arts, but martial vlog. And yeah, I'm going to talk about why the basics are so important. And
Yeah.
honestly, like when I was particularly in Wing Chun, when I was in what they had the beginner, I was always looking to the advanced. I was always like, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? And now that I'm advanced, like I'm always going back to the basics.
Hmm.
I'm always going back to them. I'm like, oh, you don't, and even when I'm showing somebody something, I'm like, well, this is cool and it happens under these kind of circumstances. But really, what you want to do is just and I'll show them some basic move, and
Hmm.
they'll be like, "Oh, I was expecting more than that." I'm like, "I know, I'll show you more, but I mean, honestly, this is what you need."
Well, that's all. If you ask Bruce Lee, what's the secret of being a great fighter, he even writes that down in his notes,
Yeah,
and he says it's the mastery of the proper fundamentals, and then the progressive application. So
yeah,
a
yeah,
few
good
people get
stuff.
to that. Few people get to that second stage of the progressive application part. They just always work in the how tos,
Yeah,
But to be
right,
successful necessitates the why and the when and the where.
right on.
Mm-hmm.
Words of wisdom, my friend. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Bruce Lee's certification, where he started and where he ended in the development of it, and what stages he had his students go through. So, however you want to slice that pie up, I really don't know exactly how.
Well, Bruce Lee actually's formal school started in '63 in Seattle. I mean, he was
Mhm.
already teaching in the basements and in parking lots in Seattle in '61, '62. But when he had that school in University Way, it's when he really started getting more organized as far as his art was concerned. And he started giving out ranks then.
Oh,
And
okay.
what he gave out, actually, I have a copy of it here. He gave
Okay.
these little cards here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? There we are.
Yeah, I can. I
Yeah. So these cards were given out to the students, and the back of it, you could see ranks. This is an
oh,
actual card that was given to a student in Seattle. Uh, even then, you hear a lot about people saying, "Oh, rank 3 means instructor." He had rank 3 in Seattle. He had students that were rank 3, and they were never instructors. But he did consider it a pretty high rank, because it meant that you had some experience and you did your homework there. But
right.
so this is where it all started with these little cards here, and then
Now on the back of that, it had. Show me the back again.
mhm, it had eight of them there, eight numbers.
Right, right.
Few few people made it to eight.
What did that stand for?
Was that?
What did that stand for? What did each one stand for?
Well, it was just how much time they put into the training.
Hmm.
You know, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3. He had a few people on rank 3. So Charlie Wu was one of them. There was a couple of other guys uh, that were rank 3, which means that they probably were with him since the beginning when he was teaching in the basements or in the parking lots or whatever, and they
Mhm.
stayed with it. There's a lot of guys that were with Bruce in the early stages and didn't go all the way to the actual schools in University Way.
Right.
So and some of them are very famous, like Jesse and James Amal. They never continued at
Hmm.
the University Way School, so
Oh,
they
okay.
they never got these cards. Which really doesn't mean it just means that you train with Bruce. But you know,
Yeah.
so I guess the guys that got rank 3 probably were the guys that stuck with it from the beginning, all the way during Bruce Lee's time when he opened up the school and so forth.
So do we know anybody who's made it all the way through with those cards there who made it through rank 8?
No, nobody made it to rank 8.
Oh, okay. All right, all right. So rank three was kind of the topping point for
Yeah,
a
the
lot of
school
people.
opened up in 1963, and Bruce Lee left Seattle 64. So
Oh,
figure it
okay.
out,
All right.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, I mean, Taki took over,
Uh-huh.
but that the particular school didn't. The University Way School closed, and Taki went back to one of the basement schools and was teaching there for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so Bruce Lee, you know, he still gave out these cards and put his name on it, and Taki gave it to the, you know, certain students. But I don't think any of them passed rank 3,
Mm.
except for Taki himself. But that's another story. Then we have when he went to Oakland. He
Okay.
in Oakland, they opened up the Junfang Kung Fu Institute over there. Now
Uh-huh.
that school closed very quickly because Bruce Lee wasn't teaching there much. You know, because a lot
Oh,
of things happened to
okay.
Bruce Lee's life. You know,
Mhm.
he got the part for Kato as Green Hornet, and he got money and went to Hong Kong. You know, I think you remember the other podcast we talked about how Bruce went. His father passed away,
Yeah.
and in February of '65, which is also
Hmm.
the same time where Bruce Lee got the screen test for the number one son, which later was the Kato role, and so he did get some retainer money, and he returned to Hong Kong with his wife and his young son Brandon, so that the family could meet him, and that's where he started getting things printed in Hong Kong, and he got so he got this printed. This is the Junfang Kung Fu Institute
Yeah. Okay.
certificate, and basically this, you know, he got that printed, and he also got these cards printed,
Okay.
and basically this was for the schools in he it was intended for the school in Oakland. You know, it wasn't closed yet,
Okay.
but
All right.
Bruce stayed there in Hong Kong for a while, then returned to Seattle with his wife and kids, and then in December returned to Oakland. By that time, the James Lee had closed the school down because it wasn't doing well, and he was teaching from his garage.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
and then Bruce moved to L.A. in March. You know, so now, these certificates didn't arrive until Bruce Lee lived in L.A. because his mother hung on to them. You know, when she got them, she didn't send them right away. So once they arrived in L.A., he started he sent Taki one and sent James Lee one, and
Oh, cool.
gave them their ranks. You know,
Oh, cool.
and I think
And now at the same time, did that certificate substantially mean anything different than like a level 3 in that previous ticket that you punched?
well, Bruce Lee sent Taki a letter telling him, let me know which are the students that have been with us for so long, and we're going to give them a certificate also,
Uh-huh.
and we're going to give them the new card. Without this certificate and the new card, their old card really doesn't mean much, So I guess he just wanted to organize it all again and
Okay.
try to
All right.
see who's stuck with it, who's with us, who's not with us, and so forth. So,
Right. Hey, Richard, would you do me a favor? Your microphone is dragging across
I don't hear it. You hear it.
your shirt,
Okay.
and yeah, and every time it drags across there,
You can't hear me. How's that?
it makes
Is that better?
well, it's on that zipper right there.
Yeah, I took it off.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good now.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So anyway, he had this certificate made for the Oakland school, and eventually the Oakland school closed. So
Yeah.
So then he decided to open up his own school in February of '67.
Mm.
And basically, this certificate was for the school. It's the Junfang Kung Fu Institute, which was the names of the school in Seattle, Oakland, and then eventually LA.
Right.
By the time he opened up the LA school, the Seattle school was still going, but with Taki, but it wasn't the actual Seattle school in University Way. It was a basement school. And then James Lee's school was basically a garage school, at James Lee's home. So that school had closed down.
Okay, and then he moved to LA.
Right.
And then did he?
In February of '67, he opened up the LA school. He moved to LA in March of '66.
Okay.
So it
So
wasn't
he,
like 11 months later where he opened up the school.
was he still working with students at that point, or was he
No,
kind?
he had a few students that he taught, in the uh, privately. Dan was one of them. Uh,
Uh-huh.
but basically he didn't have a school that he was teaching publicly yet. It was a good thing he opened it too, because the Green Hornet series was about to be canceled, the following month. So, so
So
he
he had
had the
something
school
to.
as an income for a while anyway.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
so
Okay.
so that's what that certificate was for, basically for the students of that school.
That's really cool.
And the people that
That's really
joined
cool.
eventually got a certificate. You know, uh,
Uh-huh.
and usually it was about like how long they, experience again, how long they were there and so forth. They got a first, second, and third.
Okay.
Taki, I think, got a fourth, and then eventually got a fifth from Bruce.
Really?
And James Lee got a 3, and
Okay.
Dan Osanto also got a 3 for the school, the Jun Fan
Oh,
Kung Fu
cool.
Institute.
Awesome. Awesome.
Now, once the Green Hornet series was canceled, uh, Bruce Lee, was given the idea of teaching privately to the Hollywood crowd, and charging some high rates,
Right.
for private lessons. So
Right.
he started doing that. He made some cards and, started with a rate of $150 an hour, and then brought it up to $250 an hour. Gave the cards to his friend Jay Sebring, who was a hairdresser, and he used to cut celebrity hair, and he would give them the card and say, hey, if you're interested in martial arts. So eventually he landed a few people like James Coburn, Steve McQueen, Sterling Silverfield, Joe Hyams, a few other people, in the Hollywood.
Some famous people.
Yeah, but the problem with that was that they weren't students of the Jun Fan Kung Fu Institute.
Okay.
So he wanted to give them a certificate. He thought about giving them a different type of certificate. And that's when he came up with the Tao of Chinese Kung Fu, which means the way, Bruce Lee's way of Chinese Kung Fu,
Yeah. Right.
Which meant that you train personally with Bruce Lee one-on-one.
Okay.
That's all it meant. It wasn't that it was some people think it's a whole different art, that
Okay.
Jun Fan Kung Fu Institute, they taught Jun Fan, sorry, and
Right.
I'm thinking ahead of myself. And the Tao Chinese Kung Fu, they were teaching, Tao Chinese Kung Fu art, and then when the Jeet Kune Do
Right.
certificate came out, he was teaching Jeet Kune. They're not three arts, it's just 3 certificates.
There are 3 certificates.
Right. So this certificate, the Tao Chinese Kung Fu, was given to the private students.
Okay.
And also this one particularly was given to George Lee, because George Lee would train with Bruce when he would go visit James Lee, and Bruce would teach him, because Bruce felt like he owed him, because George Lee was creating all this stuff, all these beautiful things for Bruce, the signs, and he was creating equipment and so forth.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So when he would go to James Lee, he would tell George, I'm going down to see James, come do some training with me. Eventually gave him a Tao Chinese Kung Fu certificate. So George Lee never got a Jun Fan Kung Fu certificate, because he wasn't training in the Jun Fan Kung Fu Institute. He was training privately with Bruce. Now, when Bruce came up with the idea of changing the name of the art to Jeet Kune Do, okay, then he switched this Tao Chinese Kung Fu certificate into a Jeet Kune Do certificate.
Okay.
If you read it, they both almost the same exact certificate.
Yeah. I was looking at it.
Except where it says Chinese, where it says where Tao Chinese Kung Fu up here, it says Jeet Kune Do now. And then all the wording is the same, except for where it says, learn Jeet Kune Do, over here Tao Chinese Kung Fu, over here Jeet Kune Do. So basically this one replaced this one.
Okay.
And some private students did receive a Jeet Kune Do certificate, like Sterling Silverfield and Joe Hyams. This one belongs to Peter Chin. Ted Wong got one.
Oh, okay. What did it mean? Did it mean that you were proficient at JKD, or just meant you just studied with Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee just thought he'd honor?
You study Bruce Lee's art.
Okay.
That's
You
right.
didn't mean you were proficient at Bruce Lee's art, just means you studied Bruce Lee's art.
Well, depending, yeah, because like Peter got a first rank, you know,
Okay.
and Tech One got a second rank. So just so it just depends on who got what. Dan got a third.
Right. Okay.
It's funny because Taki never got a Jeet Kune Do certificate, neither did James Lee. But
Yeah. Well,
but they
as
were
far
the
as
instructors at the Jung Fang Kung
right,
Fu Institute, so they were involved with
right,
the Jung
right.
Fang Kung Fu Institute,
As
including
far as I
Dan.
know, they still just teach Junfang Kung Fu mostly too. They don't do they don't even venture it in. I don't know for sure. I mean, I have in my lineage, I learned from is from Steve Johnson. I didn't learn from Steve Johnson. I learned from somebody who learned from Steve Johnson.
Who
But one
trained
of
in
my
Oakland.
yeah, one
Hmm.
of my older kung fu brothers that I just barely got in contact with is living in Seattle now, and he's training with Taki. And he's saying it's a little different, it's a little bit different than what he learned under Abel Sandoval. Abel Sandoval's my Qigong, and then he then it goes from Abel Sandoval to um, Steve Johnson. So, and then Steve Johnson to Bruce Lee. And he's saying that it's a little different. There's less sparring. There's a lot more chi sao. So you know, I don't want you to speak for Taki, but does Taki actually do Jeet Kune Do? I mean, is it a different art from the time what Taki was doing to the time that Bruce Lee left? That's my understanding of it. That it's developed, and I'm not even sure that these people still do they communicate. Is there a big fight between them? What's the story
No,
there?
no. Bruce Lee, tried to keep Taki and James Lee up on what was going on with the development of Jeet Kune Do.
Okay.
But as far as what Taki and his son Andrew teach, they preserve what was taught during the Seattle era,
I
and a
see.
lot of people are interested to find out what that was, so they train with them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then James Lee, he had students, and there is an Oakland group that supposedly teaches everything that James Lee taught.
Hmm.
But and then of course you had the LA group, which was the later development of Bruce Lee's art.
Hmm.
And
Right.
then whoever trained at Bruce Lee's home, got even a bigger eye opener of what was Bruce Lee's development at that time. You see,
Hmm.
the good thing about Bruce. I'm sorry.
Oh, so I was just going to ask. So Steve Johnson trained in Oakland, is what you're saying? Is that what you said, or
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
LA? Okay, I
yeah,
thought so too.
yeah.
I'm not
I've
not
seen it.
terribly
I've seen
sure.
pictures of him in the Oakland era
Yeah,
with
right,
Bruce.
right,
Yeah, so
right.
I'm almost positive I'm correct. uh, but it's a good thing that Bruce Lee wrote the, you know, uh, what his art was about. All
Right.
this. I mean, he hurt his back, and it stopped him from being physical, and now he was able to put it all in writing. So that was a good thing
Okay.
because it left a legacy for people in the future to see where his mindset was and what his art was about and where he was going within, basically what Jeet Kune Do entailed.
Right, right. But then you have the whole, and I asked you this a little bit before, but we can kind of get into it. We have the whole split over, the original JKD and then JKD concepts groups.
Mhm.
Um, uh, you do original JKDs, from what I
Yes.
understand. Is that correct? All right, all right. And
I was exposed to the concept zones because I did train with Paul Vunak, Richard
uh-huh.
Castillo, and I did a couple of seminars with Dan. But Tech One forced Tech One to come out, and start teaching the original art because it was being basically lost and disappearing, as he said it.
Right, right.
Even though Dan, when he taught Bruce Lee's art, he would call it Jung Fang, and then when he would teach whatever he came up with, he called it Jeet Kune Do concepts, which kind of really confused the public out there, because
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
they
it
think
was
that Kali is part of Jeet Kune Do, Thai boxing is part of Jeet Kune Do, Savat is part of Jeet
right.
Kune Do, and obviously it's not, and and basically the art was going through a change in left field, which uh, Taiwan didn't approve of, and he said, Bruce Lee's art's disappearing, so I'm going to start teaching what he taught me, which is what he
And
did.
the preservation of that art. Yeah, and it's a beautiful art. I mean, I'm stuck somewhere in the middle of
Mhm.
it. I love what Bruce Lee did, and I study what Bruce Lee did, and I practice what Bruce Lee did, and I teach what Bruce Lee did. But I also teach some of my own variations, some of what works for me. Because in the end, it's about honestly, it's about what works for you. So I don't hate the concepts group, but it is a little bit different than what Bruce Lee taught, and I understand that, and I see both sides of the controversy. But as I said before, when I was introduced to JKD back in '93, and then actually formally took from a Sifu in '96, somewhere around there, '95, '96.
Mhm.
I I didn't have the internet. It was I didn't know. He taught me what he learned, and he taught me it as a set of skills, a set of movements, and he taught me it as a philosophy as well. And it didn't really like conflict. It
Right.
wasn't really a conflicting thing for me until fairly recently, like within the last couple of years. And you get online and like, whoa, what's all this stuff? People are fighting back and forth between these two groups. So I'm
Well,
fortunate
what
in
happens
one
is
sense.
they gave him Bruce Lee too much credit for some of the stuff that he didn't even create himself. So you know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
so
Okay,
a lot of people think like Kali's part of Jeet Kune Do, which is not. And so forth and
no,
so forth. So
but yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand that. Yeah, Kali wasn't part of a JKD. It was the trapping in
right.
JKD was Wing Chun based, not Kali based. So, tell me a little bit about. Let's move on from this, and then because I'm very interested in there. I know that there's a. I'm not calling anyone out there anything. Not saying that, but there are a lot of JKD frauds. That was like one of the big things that was told to me. Is just like make sure that the person can track his lineage, and they can document it or whatever, because you had so many people coming out with JKD saying that they were JKD and then end up not being
I think,
related, or
yeah.
went to a seminar or whatever. Why are there so many frauds in
Well,
JKD?
I think the problem is that people think they figured it out. You know, uh, I think that the biggest problem now is if someone went to a seminar with someone, one seminar, they put it in their they put in their lineage. Oh, I trained with this person.
Right,
Maybe
right,
they did a 2 hour, 3 hour seminar with them, uh,
right,
uh, and and they think they figured it out. And then when you
right.
see what they're teaching, you say, "Wow, that's not what Jeet Kune Do is." I say, uh, I keep saying there's too many instructors, not enough students. Some people don't want to go through the whole student aspect of sweating and working and even
Uh-huh.
being humble to be able to learn from somebody. They right away they want to teach.
Right, right.
And can't do that. You have to be able to understand it completely. It's not
Hmm.
a 1, 2, 3 solution. And and you also have to remember back then when there was concepts too. Uh, People were figuring, well, I do know boxing. Oh, I do know some jujitsu. Or I do know some Thai boxing. So basically, this is my own Jeet Kune Do. That kind of, which is today we call MMA.
Right,
um,
right.
so you had that problem too. Thinking your way is your way, my way is my way, and that's Jeet Kune Do. If you have to, you have to understand in some of the concepts, because they would say, we teach you all these different styles. You pick what works for you. Welcome to your own Jeet Kune Do.
Hmm.
And you say, so, well, where is Bruce Lee's art there?
Right.
Oh, this little section here called Jung Fang,
Hmm.
and that was it. So there wasn't, unfortunately, Bruce Lee was a good marketing tool, and Jeet Kune Do, the symbol, and everything was a good marketing tool.
Hmm.
And then you
Yeah.
go and to some of these seminars, and you realize, where's the Jeet Kune Do here,
Hmm.
and it was lacking. So
Right.
so
Right.
that was a big problem. Some people thought, well, I already know that style, so I guess I know Jeet Kune Do. They didn't realize what Jeet Kune Do principles were and so forth.
Yeah. And they don't realize how dedicated of a student Bruce Lee was. I mean, Bruce Lee did Wing Chun for like what 4 or 5 years. I mean, he was and he did other stuff as well, but it wasn't like he just, oh, I'm going to do some boxing and some this and some that. I mean, he was continually trying to work on himself. And what bugs me is that people a lot of times they'll do like well, I took the boxing seminar, and I took a Wing Chun seminar, and I took this seminar, and it's like, no, you can't learn an art through a seminar. You have to actually go through the motions of being a student of some art. And I always tell people when they ask me about what should you do, I say, pick an art. I mean, I have the ones I prefer. I said, pick an art, stick to it, and be realistic about what you about its holes, about the places that it doesn't that it might not work, and then go to the best people of that. So for example, when I was studying in Canada, I went to a week-long seminar in Systema, and I was studying in Canada, and I it kind of opened my eyes to groundwork, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of cool because they did a lot of stuff on the ground. And I said, well, who does groundwork the best? The Gracies do groundwork the best. So I'm going to go. I found a Gracie school to go to. So I tell people that all the time. I'm like, okay, so let's say, because no system is complete. You have to supplement to some degree. It's like, go to the people who do it the best. Um, but you got to stick with it. You got to be a student of something. You're not going to be good if you don't stick with it. And Bruce Lee was one of those people who stuck with it. He was a dedicated martial artist.
Well, that's true. Uh, but what happens is that when you have like you say, you went to a Systema uh, seminar for a week.
Right.
Who knows how many people came out of that seminar and right away were teaching the art.
Right.
Or
Right.
saying they know it, or they studied it, or even give out certificates in it. I mean, there's a certificate-itis going on here too. Everybody's just going certificate crazy. Some people even trade certificates. You give me a certificate in Wing Chun, I'll give you one in Jeet Kune Do. It's just
Right.
after a while, they basically don't mean anything.
Hmm.
Because
Right.
it's overdone. You know, just like
Yeah.
the black belt in the old days. The black belt meant the black belt, and then what happened? You had these people giving black belts away. Didn't mean much anymore.
No, I mean it. Black belt was like a 4-year
Yeah,
process.
you said, "Wow, you were black belt." Oof.
Yeah,
Now
three
they're
if
giving
you
these little
study.
kids a black belt at 10,
Yeah.
11 years old, and poor kid, he couldn't defend himself from against anyone. But
Right.
that's the way people, it gets commercialized like anything else.
Yeah, it gets commercialized. But thank God for people like you who are trying to preserve the art and
Thank you.
make it mean something. You know what I mean? Or keep it meaning something, not make it mean something, but keep it meaning something. Um, what's your favorite Bruce Lee story? Because you're a Bruce Lee historian. What's your favorite Bruce Lee story?
Favorite Bruce Lee story? There's so many of them. Uh,
I know that's hard to pick from. What's
that's that,
may-
that's a tough one.
okay, let me ask you this one. What's
Oh, I could tell you one that I think was a
okay,
good one.
go ahead.
Um, Bruce Lee had just come back from Hong Kong in 1963.
Uh-huh.
Now, at this time, he was still in college. Or he was still in college, and it was the summer of '63 where he had the summer off, and he went back to college. I mean, excuse me, he went back to Hong Kong to visit the family.
Hmm.
Now, he hadn't been there since 1959 that he left, and he went there, and Ruby Chow and her husband joined him, and they went to Hong Kong. They went to Hong Kong. Then, so you have to remember, in Seattle, at Ruby Chow's, Bruce Lee was a busboy. In other words, he swept the floors, mopped the floors, did the dish, cleaned the dishes. People think he was a waiter, but he was a busboy. You know, um, then he goes back to Hong Kong, and the servants there now. Father's there, mother's there, the servants live with them, and he gets everything again, everything he wants. And they see how good of a martial artist he became in America, from America, that his martial arts game got improved so much. You would think it would have improved in Hong Kong, but it improved when he came to America and then returned to Hong Kong. They saw how devoted he was to martial arts. And my favorite story is because when he does return to Seattle, here he goes back to that little room that he has in Ruby Chow's, right back to doing the same thing of being a busboy, and you have to understand, and when he returned to Hong Kong, everybody's proud of him. What an achievement. Like he did a 180. From being a troublemaker. Now he's in college. He was dressed, suit and tie. He all the accomplishments. His martial arts was really good, and then he maybe downplaying it and saying, "Dad, I'm still a busboy in Seattle." No, but you accomplished. You're going to college, and So he returns to Seattle, and right back to the same job at Ruby's, and he gets a phone call from James Lee, telling him, "Bruce, the book that you wrote, the Philosophical Art of Self-Defense, Chinese Kung Fu Philosophical Arts, is selling very well. I got $5,000 for you."
Oh wow!
Think about $5,000 in 1963.
Yeah.
Even now, it's a lot of money, right?
Yeah, even now, I wouldn't.
So my favorite story, you could almost see where Ruby Chow's telling him, get off the phone, stop sweeping, whatever, and he now has $5,000, in his pocket, So there's stories from Doug Palmer that he said that Bruce Lee called him and said that he just quit Ruby Chow's, and if he could stay at his home for 2 weeks until he opens up his school, So,
right on.
So you can imagine what happened after he found out he had that money. He probably had it out, and
probably just said, "I'm out of here."
Bruce Lee, went to Doug Palmer's house and stayed there for 2 weeks until he found that storefront in University Way, opened up that school, which had a bedroom in the back. And
good.
So my favorite story is how he just completely switched and said, "No more of this. You can take the broom, take the mop."
Yeah.
Take the attic, take whatever you want. I'm out of here.
Right.
And
can make money
and opened up his own school. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was pretty nice. I mean, people, you have to wonder, where did he get the money to open up this storefront school? It's not cheap,
Yeah. Right.
That's what it was. It was from that.
It's not cheap. Not cheap at all.
Yeah. So.
One last question here. Tell me, or I don't know if it's the last question, but another question occurred to me. What's your favorite obscure Bruce Lee story? Like a Bruce Lee story that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with, or there might be some legend around or something like that. I don't know if you can think of one that, like, something that you would like people to know, a story about Bruce Lee that a lot of people don't really know too well.
Well, I remember when Bruce Lee went to Hong Kong with his son Brandon to help out with his mother's paperwork to bring her to America. The only people left in Hong Kong now in the old apartment was Bruce Lee's brother Robert and his mother Grace. Everybody else had moved to the States, the sisters and the brother and all that. The brother was still in school. Anyway, those two were left, and Bruce Lee was returning to Hong Kong to help out with the paperwork to get his mother and his brother to come to the States and live with him. So he decided to go to Hong Kong with Brandon, little Brandon.
Yeah.
And when they land in Hong Kong, he's looking out the window in the airplane, and he sees crowds of photographers and media. They're all there, And he says to himself, "Wow, there must be somebody important in this airplane, Look at all those people out there." And guess who they were waiting for?
Bruce Lee.
They were waiting for Bruce Lee. His mother had
Bruce Lee.
They interviewed his mother in a radio station. Mentioned that he was coming to Hong Kong that day, and they all wanted to interview him because he didn't know that they were showing the Green Hornet in Hong Kong, and they called it
Oh,
the Kato Show.
yeah.
And he was a big celebrity, homegrown kid
Right.
making big in Hollywood and that kind of thing.
Right.
And they called the show after him, the Kato Show.
Yeah.
So he was very famous in Hong Kong, and now he was returning, there, and he didn't realize what a big celebrity he was. And if you look at some of the pictures where you see him and Brandon doing demonstrations on local TV, you see how famous he was, which eventually
Right.
led to Raymond Chow taking notice and asking him if he would make movies for him, and boom, there goes his career.
Right
So,
on.
so that's a story that too many people know about.
Cool. Cool. Thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for being on the program again. Can you tell people where to find you, like in case they want to book you for a seminar or whatever it is you have to offer?
Yeah, well, my website is www.jkdmartialarts.com. And basically, if you look there, you can see our phone number of my school. We're located in New York, and that's where our school is. This way. See if I have a card. You won't be able to see it, but this is our card here for our school.
Ah, gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, I have students that drive an hour and a half to train with me. They're very dedicated. And
Right.
It's really nice to be, that know that people really want to train in this art. I always tell people it's not me, it's the art. So
right.
They come and they train with me, and they'll do the drive just to do it. So
cool.
That's good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, I'm sure it's very worth it. Wish you lived closer to me. I'd be definitely there training with you.
No,
All
Joe,
right.
come to Poland with me. Well, I do. I have a few seminars that we're working on now, and I'm going to Poland now, and then of course we're going to be going to the Netherlands and Germany again. And
right
working other places, a lot of places in Europe. So
cool.
It's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, Richard, stick with me for just a second. I want to talk for you just a second after the show. I'm going to go ahead and close it down here, but stay with me.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Empty Cup podcast. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Share this on your favorite social media, and don't be afraid to push that subscribe button. Please subscribe wherever you listen to this, whether it's on iTunes or podcast, whatever podcast platform you're listening to. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, I've got a lot of special features on YouTube that I don't share anywhere else but on YouTube. I got my martial vlog. I've got tips, me sparring with people, stuff like that. That's just specific to YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube as well. And you can follow me also at Facebook, the Empty Cup Podcast. And I'm pretty active on Facebook. If I see something that I like, some martial arts quote or meme or video, I throw it up there on Facebook. So if you want to see what I see, check out Facebook, my Facebook page. You can also follow me on Twitter if you're a Twitter fan, but I got to admit, I really don't do much on Twitter. Too many fake accounts on Twitter for me. So I just don't even do too much on Twitter. But I'm on there, and the show shows up on there too. So if you're a Twitter fan, follow us on Twitter at Empty Cup Podcast. And until we meet again, hey, keep your gloves up.